Have you ever wondered why the conflict between Hamas and Israel seems to be an endless cycle of violence? Today, we're embarking on a journey to explore this contentious issue. We'll examine the roots of this seemingly perpetual conflict and its profound global implications. Understanding these dynamics is key to grasping the complexities of international relations and the intricate dance of diplomacy. So let's take a step back, dive into the annals of history, and unravel the threads of this intricate tapestry. Join us as we delve into the history of this complex issue. The seeds of this conflict were sown long before the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948. To truly understand the roots of the conflict, we must venture back to the late 19th and early 20th century. During this period, a significant number of Jewish people began migrating to Palestine, driven by the Zionist movement. This movement was based on the idea of establishing a Jewish homeland in the territory defined as the historic land of Israel. However, this migration was not welcomed by the local Arab population, who viewed the increasing influx of Jewish immigrants as a threat to their own demographic dominance and cultural identity. This tension was further exacerbated by the Balfour Declaration of 1917. This was a public statement issued by the British government during World War I, announcing support for the establishment of a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. Needless to say, this declaration was met with strong opposition from the Arab inhabitants of Palestine, who feared that this would lead to their displacement. Fast forward to 1948, and the conflict had escalated to the point of full-scale war. The State of Israel was established following the withdrawal of British colonial rule, and almost immediately, neighboring Arab states launched an attack. This war, known as the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, saw the fledgling Israeli state not only defend its existence but also expand its territories. The aftermath of the war led to a significant displacement of both Jewish and Arab populations, further deepening the animosity between the two groups. In the years that followed, the conflict evolved and grew more complex, with both sides harboring deep-seated resentment and historical grievances. The establishment of the State of Israel had forever changed the landscape of the region, and the reverberations of these historical events are still felt today. The 1948 Arab-Israeli War set the stage for the decades of conflict that would follow. Fast forward to 1987, during the First Intifada, a Palestinian uprising against Israeli occupation, Hamas was born. An acronym for Harakat al-Muqawama al-Islamiyya, Hamas translates to Islamic Resistance Movement. This emergence was not random or sudden, but a response to long-standing grievances and political turmoil. Hamas was formed as an offshoot of the Muslim Brotherhood, a transnational Islamic organization with the primary aim of liberating Palestine from Israeli occupation. Its creation was a direct result of the perceived failure of the Palestine Liberation Organization, or the PLO, to effectively challenge Israeli control and deliver on the promise of a Palestinian state. The Hamas Charter, penned in 1988, outlines the organization's fundamental principles and objectives. It is a complex document, blending religious doctrine with political goals. It asserts that Palestine is an Islamic land from the river to the sea, a phrase that has stirred much controversy due to its interpretation as a call for the elimination of Israel. However, Hamas differed from the PLO in their strategic approaches. While the PLO was seen to capitulate to international pressures, negotiating with Israel and recognizing its right to exist, Hamas maintained a more hardline stance. Their strategy was rooted in armed resistance, rejecting any form of negotiation or recognition of Israel. This uncompromising approach attracted those disenchanted with the PLO's perceived moderation. Yet, the formation of Hamas was not only about resistance. It also sought to address the social needs of the Palestinian population, providing services such as schools, hospitals, and mosques, thereby gaining significant popular support. Hamas's rise was a turning point in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. It added a new layer of complexity, leading to an escalation in violence and a further polarization of positions. The organization's refusal to recognize Israel and its commitment to armed struggle were key factors in this escalation. In conclusion, the birth of Hamas was a pivotal event born out of dissatisfaction with existing leadership and a desire for a more assertive approach to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Hamas's formation intensified the conflict, leading to a new chapter of violence. The conflict between Hamas and Israel has seen several decisive moments, each escalating the situation further. The Second Intifada, which erupted in the year 2000, marked a significant shift in the dynamics of the conflict. This was a period of intensified Israeli-Palestinian violence, which lasted until 2005. The Palestinian uprising was a reaction to Israeli occupation, and Hamas played a significant role in this conflict. The group's use of suicide bombings during this period led to a drastic increase in Israeli security measures, including the construction of the controversial separation barrier in the West Bank. Then came the 2006 election, a pivotal moment in the conflict. Hamas, campaigning on a platform of change and reform, surprisingly won a majority in the Palestinian Legislative Council. This victory essentially split the governance of the Palestinian territories, with Hamas controlling Gaza and Fatah the West Bank. Israel, the United States, and the European Union refused to recognize Hamas's legitimacy, leading to increased tensions and conflict. The Gaza War, or what's also known as the 23-Day War in late 2008 and early 2009, was another major flashpoint. Initiated by an Israeli military campaign, its stated aim was to stop Hamas rocket fire into Israel. The war resulted in significant civilian casualties and massive infrastructural damage in Gaza. In recent years, the conflict has seen further escalations. Periods of relative calm are often shattered by sudden flare-ups of violence. Rocket attacks from Gaza into Israel and retaliatory Israeli airstrikes are common occurrences. These escalations often lead to civilian casualties, and each round of violence only serves to further entrench the animosity between the two sides. The impacts of these conflicts on the Palestinian and Israeli populations are vast. Lives are lost, homes are destroyed, and the hopes for peace seem to fade with each passing day. The cycle of violence has created a deep-seated mistrust and hatred, making the path to resolution even more challenging. Yet amidst the turmoil, there are voices on both sides calling for peace, for a solution that respects the rights and aspirations of both Israelis and Palestinians. These voices remind us that behind the politics and the conflict are people, families who just want to live their lives in peace and security. Each conflict has only served to deepen the divide and hatred between the two sides. Today, the conflict remains unresolved, with both sides seemingly stuck in a cycle of violence. This is the stark reality of the situation between Hamas and Israel. The present state of affairs is marked by an uneasy truce punctuated by sporadic outbreaks of violence. Despite numerous attempts at peace negotiations, the path to a lasting resolution remains elusive. The challenges to peace are manifold and complex. On one side, there's Hamas, an organization with a dual identity, part political, part militant. For them, the challenge lies in reconciling their ideological commitment to the liberation of Palestine with the pragmatic realities of governance and diplomacy. On the other side, there's Israel, a nation seeking to safeguard its people and its sovereignty, while grappling with international criticism over its handling of the conflict. Peace negotiations have often been stymied by mutual distrust, deep-seated grievances, and disagreements over key issues such as borders, the right of return for Palestinian refugees, and the status of Jerusalem. These issues are not just political or territorial. They are deeply personal and emotional for the people involved, making them particularly challenging to resolve. Looking ahead, the future implications of this ongoing conflict are profound. If left unresolved, it threatens to destabilize not just the immediate region, but potentially the wider Middle East and beyond. The humanitarian toll is also significant, with ordinary people on both sides bearing the brunt of the violence and instability. But amidst the gloom, there are glimmers of hope. There are voices on both sides advocating for peace and dialogue, for mutual understanding and coexistence. There are initiatives, both grassroots and international, aimed at fostering empathy and reconciliation. In the end, the resolution to the Hamas-Israel conflict will require courage, compromise, and a shared commitment to peace. It will require the recognition that the cycle of violence serves no one's interests, and that the path to a better future lies in negotiation, not confrontation. As the world watches, the question remains, can there ever be a resolution to the conflict between Hamas and Israel? In understanding the conflict between Hamas and Israel, we must recognize its complexity and its deep-seated roots. We've journeyed through the historical context, the birth of Hamas, the major confrontations, and the present-day implications. These layers of history, politics, and human struggle intertwine to form a tapestry of tension that continues to shape the region. While we may not have the answers, gaining a better understanding of the conflict is the first step towards advocating for peace and justice.